Dude, likewise. Thank you guys so much. I think it's been
A lot.
almost once
Yeah,
we last time.
I think we talked in April or March, like was really long time ago, bro. And we collaborated on a bunch of stuff since then. So I'm really, really happy to have you here. And also you'll be supporting us as a sponsor. So this is thank you so much, for always being there when we need it. This is really important.
100%, man. I really like what you guys have been doing. We've kind of grown in parallel. So awesome to see that.
Bro, I have a very special. I wasn't even doing podcasts anymore because it's you. I have a really special little gist of thing, gist of little things that I collected, and I wanted to discuss with you. And I wanted to open, so we get a little bit out of we're gonna talk about auditing, yes, but I want to get a little bit out of it, because I see all these guys, and something that happened on Open Sense and that we be doing, me and you, is running a YouTube channel. And more often than not, I'm trying to encourage people to start in this business and, just put your videos out, start doing something. And I noticed that you managed to be consistent with the quality of what you put out. I mean, I have total understanding of the amount of work you must put on each video. So what is your process, for first, how did you had the idea of being a YouTuber? And what is your process to go in creating a video today?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And yeah, I completely agree with the take that I think, more folks should take the opportunity to share what they're learning, even if you're just getting started out, even if you have, a year of experience or something like this. You don't even realize how valuable that can be to somebody who's just a few months before you, right? So just sharing what you're learning along the way is super valuable. And it's really a more long-term approach to making yourself, known in the space, building your brand up, right? It's not something that's going to give you an immediate result. In fact, it will take like 6 months before anything really noticeable happens. But over a course of 3 years, it's going to make the world of difference, right? So that's definitely something I would recommend to others. And I think just now, after doing it for 6 months, we're starting to see amazing results from it. And I'm really glad that I did put in the hours. And so in terms of like, okay, how do you do it consistently? How do you, make sure
What is the
that it is something
process,
that is sustainable? Yeah. The process is, first of all, you've got to make it work for you. You've got to make it as effective and efficient as possible, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of audits. And, we're really busy as security researchers. So we've got to make it work for us. What I do is every week I try to record at least 2 videos and have a backlog of, 4+ videos so that there's always like some buffer if I get really busy. And then if that buffer burns down, then I'll, go on a tear and like 4 days straight, record a video every day. And you get better at doing them. Like your first video, you're going to have to write out a whole script and it's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to, do a lot of shoots. But after I think I've done like 50 videos at this point, now I can just sit down and, almost go off the top of my head and just record a video and have the whole video out in an hour. So certainly it's, first of all, having a buffer and then also creating systems and processes that make it a lot more manageable for you. So for us, what that looks like is we have editors where I just record the video and that's it. I record the video, give them the script, give them, any images I want them to put in the video, and then they handle all that stuff for me because, we're security researchers. We don't need to be doing like editing unless, of course, that's your thing. But
I see.
definitely save as much time as possible. Yeah.
Amazing, buddy. Amazing input. So you definitely get better. Every video you start getting a little bit faster, understanding things a little bit better. So this is for sure some really good tip, bro. Talking a little bit about your journey, talking a little bit about things that happened before GuardianAudits, because not a lot of people know, but you've been into Forex, e-commerce, hiring, doing all this stuff. Can we talk about you, like how many times you failed until you found what you wanted to do?
Dude, I love that question. That's the perfect question. And yeah, I'll be honest. Like, how many times we've failed? A lot, right? And that's what it takes. So, funny story. GuardianAudits technically used to be an e-commerce brand 4 years ago. So the logo that we use for GuardianAudits was actually the logo for my first company that I started with the same co-founder. And we started it 4 years ago as an e-commerce brand. It was called Genuine Aesthetic, and it was basically a clothing brand. And that was basically our first endeavor into, anything kind of entrepreneurial. And we got that. We did get it to, I guess, technically work. We sold like 100 hoodies or something like this over the course of a few months, which was like an amazing journey. It was really hard to get to that point. And honestly, that first point of like, oh, wow, some stranger halfway across the world just bought one of our hoodies. That was really cool. But, the clothing brand is not really like the greatest product. But what we ended up doing after that is we had figured out a system to get customers for a clothing brand, and it involved some automations on Instagram.
Nice.
So we pivoted and we basically made a software application based on that gave the service of like, basically we had basically a Python script that did some sort of automations that basically like ran, our funnel for how we were getting customers, started selling that to other e-commerce brands on Instagram. And so long story short, we did that for a few months. We were getting, a lot of users. We were pretty excited about it. We were really looking forward to that like hockey stick SaaS growth. We thought we were going to be like millionaires. We thought we were going to have like a $10 million exit or something crazy. But of course, what happened is Instagram ended up changing their terms of service in such a way that invalidated our application.
Wow. Such a boom.
And so, yeah, so like essentially from 100 to 0, we had to cut all of our users. And like, I mean, we could have tried to continue, but we thought, let's not fight a $1 billion organization that has, thousands of users. So at that point, that's really when we decided to come into the Web3 space. We saw Bitcoin go from 65,000 to like 29,000. This was, during that first initial crash, like 2 years ago. And that's really when we got in. We were like, hey, that looks interesting. Maybe there's an opportunity there. Started reading about Ethereum, learning about Ethereum. And what we did there is we actually, built a DeFi protocol, and then ended up, having to get an audit, realizing that audits really, really suck. They missed a critical vulnerability. And then we were like, okay, well, let's solve the problem of audits.
Let's fix this. Bro, so you're working with the same team for a while now, right?
I think you cut out for a second.
You're working with the same team for a while, right? Right? Like with Danny and everything?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So Danny he's been my co-founder for everything that we've started in, the last 4 or 5 years. And yeah, with the DeFi protocol, with the
really nice.
brand, with the product. Yeah. So honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better like entrepreneurial partner, or even a better security researcher to work alongside. He's by far and away probably the smartest guy I've ever had a chance to work with. The dude won like NASA robotics coding competitions. The guy he's a gigabrain, and I definitely credit a lot of our success to him.
And there's an important tip in there is find a co-founder, find someone to work with, find someone to help you. That will bring you along the way. Owen, bro, I want to talk a little bit about now Web3 branding, okay, leveraging yourself as an auditor. And because one of the really interesting points I came across in your videos was talking about inbound traffic. So instead of going there, requesting every protocol, just say, hey, do you want an audit? Would be much easier for you to brand yourself. And I even want to put something a little bit maybe unpopular here. I would say that not a lot of people are putting threads every day like you also recommend, and it's not that hard to climb that ladder, So can you talk a little bit about building that brand and maybe, what it takes? Because I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's simple, but not necessarily easy. And what I mean by that is you could do the very obvious things for just a period of 6 months, which is not even that long of a time, and you start to see incredible results just because not a lot of other people are doing those things for even a period of 6 months. And then if you do that for 2 years, well, you're going to have incredible results. It's just that, the fact of the matter is there's no real way to just jump to the top. The hardest thing is that it's that factor of time, right? And I mean, we're still incredibly early, so I don't even fully appreciate the factor of time because simply, we've only been doing, starting businesses for 4 years, which is absolutely nothing. But from what I've seen so far, time has been the number one most important thing
Yeah.
for us.
And also be proactive, right? Look at the code, make comments, maybe try to reach out to developers, this will actually help you a lot. And I want to,
Yeah. Actually, if I could just
go
give
on.
a quick cheat code, something that I thought of that would, I wish we did this actually when we were starting out, because I think this would have given us, a big boost. I was thinking of this. Everybody, when you're looking at a brand, when you're looking at an audit firm, when you're looking at a solo auditor, everybody looks at what reports do they have? Who have they done reports for? And they're going to judge you based on that. And so what you could do is let's take, 4 weeks, let's take no pay, let's go and audit Aave or, XYZ big protocol or sushi. Go and just spend 4 weeks, without any expectation of pay. Just try to produce an insane quality audit for Aave and then go present it to them. Maybe you find a medium. Maybe, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, if you're really, really good at Web3 security, maybe you can find a medium in Aave, and that would be absolutely sick. But
Yeah.
you spend 4 weeks, make a crazy report for Aave without them reaching out to you, without them offering to pay you. Just go and deliver it to them. Maybe they pay you, maybe they don't. But now you have an incredible report for Aave. That's a huge name that you can put in your portfolio now. If you do, 2 or 3 of those, now, of course, that will take 3 months to do, 3 really high quality reports, and you might probably not get paid for that. But now you have all of that insane reputation and, these big protocol names that are associated with your brand through your portfolio.
Amazing stuff, buddy. Amazing stuff. And I got a few shit codes you gave to companies as well. And I found one very, very interesting, which is requesting an independent audit, requesting an independent review before an audit. I found that to be super interesting. And yes, can we talk a little bit about that?
100%. Yeah. So our business model is we're basically short developers. So we charge more if you have more vulnerabilities. So what we've seen is generally when code bases are unreviewed, so they're getting their first review, usually there's actually a crap ton of vulnerabilities, like tons. Like we have to stop the audit sometimes because we find too much and the audit is going to be an exorbitant amount of money, right? So often what I'll recommend is like sure, we like charging a lot, but we want to actually, get your code base to a really strong point. We don't want to just, I don't feel good uncovering like, oh, you forgot an initializer modifier. Like, I don't want to charge people for that,
Yeah.
right? So that's 100% what we recommend is, even before coming to us, like it might be a good idea to get, just like 1 or 2 days of just an independent review. It doesn't have to be anything critical or anything, intense. But yeah, that's honestly what I would recommend for most teams, just to catch the low level stuff. And then that makes the audit, the actual like big audit, a lot more effective because now we're not worried about baseline stuff. We're actually going to spend the weeks of the audit looking into interesting, non-trivial things which are the things that you actually want to pay for.
Really cool, buddy. Something else you said that was also quite interesting is that you need to engage auditors early, right? You need to be as you're
Yep.
building, be talking with these people. Some of them are even offering like these subscription services where they follow you for a full year. So
Yeah.
I found that to be a super cool business model. Bro, have you seen the on-chain representations for audits? This ERC 7512 they just released, like I think yesterday or something.
No, what's up with that? What
Real
does that look like?
super interesting. So basically, you're gonna be able to emit a smart contract that represents every audit. So imagine you have a bridge that for the token to be listed on the bridge, the audit is required on chain. So the bridge will be able to verify if that token has an audit, and then that will be all on chain. So I find that should be, you're going to have the name of the company, the name of the auditor, these things will be represented. I find that should be super interesting.
Do they accept certic audits or?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about that. That was actually a great question in there. Bro, we see more and more people being vocal regarding auditing companies. So sometimes, right now, Certic is under fire. There's opinions being thrown around. How risky do you think this is? Because running an auditing business and missing bugs is, happens to everyone. Happens if you get this happening maybe 1, 2, 3 times. I mean, every auditing company name is, one bug away of being trashed. How do you feel about this?
100%. Yeah, it's something everybody should consider before coming into the security niche. It is probably the number one downside of being in this business is that when you're doing work, it's great that you're getting jobs and you're getting, audits. But with every audit that you put out, you're actually putting out a surface area of risk into the ecosystem. And as you do more work, you're putting out higher and higher surface area of risk. And as you, in fact, scale up your firm, you are outputting a higher rate of surface area of risk per month. So it's not ideal, especially if you were looking to build an audit firm to eventually be able to sell it to somebody else or get acquired or have an exit or anything like this. That's really, it's not an ideal business for that because, well, why would I buy something if, there's like 4 years of like risk surface area, dragging behind it that could, in any given day have like 100 to 0 moment of some huge exploit occurring and your brand being associated with that. So it is 100% like the biggest downside of like just getting into this business in general. Now on Certic specifically, or, just companies in general that seem to have a lower vetting process, or at least based on the results. I honestly am surprised that to this date, they still get the inflow that they do. Like I imagine that all of this bad press will catch up to them and it's not going to end well for them, but maybe they've already, had their exit, but I don't know.
Yeah, I believe that they do it because, all the people in the DGen, the shitcoins, they really like the Certic name because of the last bull run. And
Yeah.
even though, and as we know, security is a very small bubble, but I think, yes, we'll catch up, I guess. I mean, at some point, but I really love the way you put it. The risk surface area, the perfect, way to describe it. Bro, now to give a little bit of alpha for our auditor buddies, but for the starting ones, because I also went through a lot of your material, once again, amazing material on YouTube. I want to talk about the importance of your first audit because, that ties in with something that you say that's really interesting and tricky, which is creating the positive feedback loop, right? So we have paper vulnerability. So we only get paid when we find something, in fact, okay? And then we need to find a way of creating that. And sometimes when you're approaching your first audit, it's really important to step down, breathe, take it easy, understand the code. And I don't know, can we talk a little bit about this? It's hard for me even to conceptualize it.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, absolutely agree. Your first audit is the hardest. So definitely know that if you're currently doing your first audit, it is the hardest. It probably feels, very unfamiliar. You don't really know where to look or what to do or how to attack the problem, or, maybe even this is your third audit and you're still just without an exact system. I'll say, like, I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and only in the last, I would say, 3 months or so, I feel like I've just now gotten to something where, like, okay, now I have an effective, like, really good approach for this is exactly how I'm going to audit, and this is even exactly how I'm going to work while I audit. I just recently started to have like a timer now that I just put on my desk, and that's been a great addition as of late. But on your first audit, yeah, 100% the feedback loop that you mentioned is an extremely important thing. And I would say in terms of, just those first, let's say, dozen audits, it's going to be rough because you're not going to be getting a ton of top positive feedback. You're going to be hitting your head against a wall, just finding maybe lows. Maybe you get your first medium and that'll be a really important moment. But in terms of those first 12 audits, you just got to get them done, right? You've just got to
Awesome stuff.
hunker down and get through, because the next 12 audits, now you're going to get a larger and larger feedback loop. You're going to get some highs, maybe get a critical, and then from there it's all downhill. Then you just get better and better, and the dopamine that you get from looking for stuff is just fueling a rampage of code reading.
Yeah. I also saw the video where you talk about how caffeine affects you, and this is really cool. I mean, I wish I was like that. I drink a ton of coffee, Bro, I think one of the really cool things you're always touching on, and really shows, that you'll be dealing with this for a while, is creating a ritual, right? Making things easy for yourself.
Yeah.
While doing an audit. So that is having the right IDE, eliminate all distractions. What is your process today while you're auditing?
Yeah, fantastic question. So, yeah, like I said, in the last 3 months, I've been really almost forced to improve how I approach things as we've, gotten a lot more projects. And, there are even times where I'm personally split between 3 different code bases that we're, all that we're going in on at the same time. So I've had to definitely dial in on this and focus in and see, hey, where's my time going when I'm actually looking at a code base? So I'll say, first of all, one of the most important things that I mentioned is introducing a timer. So I often found that, earlier on when I just opened a code base and I started looking at code, I was just kind of meandering. And you'd even find yourself sometimes just reading the same line over and over again because you're just
Classic.
The classic, like, I'm not focused. I don't have a goal. So first of all, to fix that, I have a timer that I just keep on my desk right next to me, put it up to like 60 minutes, 50 minutes, and just go straight for 50 minutes. Now, before I start the timer and start like a session, what I'll do is write down a number of goals. So goals that I want to achieve in that 60-minute session. And then what I'll do is, we'll actually try to achieve those goals. So like, I want to understand, how do liquidations happen? How does a user, close their position or stuff like this? And then what I'll do is, I used to have Discord open. because we track our findings in Discord. I found that was really distracting because I would keep getting pinged like I just did. And that would, bring me off center. I'd want to check it. So completely got rid of Discord, closed it out, and I just started writing stuff down on my notes app and tracking stuff there, and then, putting it all in after the session is over. So that's what I've gotten down to now, and it seems to be working for me pretty well thus far.
And close Twitter too. Close Twitter, dude.
Oh yeah.
For us auditors, and you said something really interesting. When I want to understand how liquidation happens, how often you find yourself completely clueless of some new process, some new financial thing, and you need to research, and how hopeless you feel while researching it.
Yeah, no, like the financial side of stuff, 100% I can understand how, like, that part for me, who's somebody who's more just like a, software engineering, mathematics background. I don't have a ton of the finance knowledge, right? So for that, I 100% have to give immense credit to Danny, my co-founder. He came from, a finance background. He used to work for, one of the top 10 banks and doing like transaction cost analysis.
Wow.
He's been so helpful. Like we just did an options protocol and an audit of an options protocol. And he was absolutely key in, breaking that stuff down for us. So I do have to give absolute credit for him. And I guess my advice on this for any auditor is try to pair up with somebody who has a finance background. That's the best advice I can give.
Amazing stuff, buddy. Amazing. I'm about to read the questions from the community. First, I'm gonna get the questions from everybody that is talking, but I have I want to go a little bit about a last thing with you, Owen, which is also really challenging, because okay, so we have solidity, right? We have contracts. The thing is, auditing, I feel like you have two aspects of it. You have the least aspect, so you have the known vulnerabilities, the things you saw, but then you have these really strange vulnerabilities, like I saw with ZK Casino, where the vulnerability relied on you lagging the network for 2,000 blocks and required like $1 million. How am I supposed, before someone understood that, how am I supposed to come across this and think about this? Because all these EVM chains, all these changes, just feels like we're not even capable of touching parts of the audit,
Yeah, absolutely. I think as audits, especially as the complexity of the code base scales, I find that an audit becomes less about reading the code and getting lost in the line by line. Of course, that's always important, but it scales more towards stepping back and thinking about the code base abstractly, right? Thinking about it without looking at each line of code and thinking about these are the rules of the game that I now understand in my mental model. How can I use these specific rules to cause something, at a higher level to go wrong? For example, in the GMX v2 code base, it's a very complex code base that has a lot of interchangeable parts, things that can interact with each other. You're not going to find some of the really, really high level manipulation attacks unless you step back and you think about what is the system doing at a high level, right? So we have a number of findings that are related to the manipulation of orders over a period of time where, I can basically cause the keeper to not be able to execute orders for a while.
Nice.
And that can happen in a number of ways, block stuffing or even just, some stuff in the code base itself. But to zoom out and see that, you have to step back from the code base. And so I think that would be, one thing that I would recommend folks try to do a little bit more of is take a step back from the code and think about the protocol in an abstract sense.
Amazing, buddy. Amazing. So now, does anyone here in the session with the mic open wants to make a question? Outline, Pinky, Muhab, Pangolin.
Yes, Owen. I want to ask you about the process of joining GuardianAudits. Like, what's the process to join and
Good
stuff?
question.
And the other question is like, do you have like an earning? Like, are you doing private audits? So you split the money between the auditors, or how are you paying?
Yeah, absolutely. So two fantastic questions. First of all, on joining GuardianAudits, right now, there's no official like application page or anything like this at this moment. There may be in the future. Right now, we just bring folks on to work with them, see how, the culture fit is, see how we, like collaborating with them. And then based on that, like you might have seen, we just added Kiki to our team. He's worked with us on a few reviews thus far. He's been really fantastic. So we're really excited to bring him on and continue to, learn from him, and then also help him, learn from us. So I think we're really excited about that. But in terms of getting on GuardianAudits, there's no that path right now. But if you're interested in joining us just for, like a trial, you want to join us for an audit and see how we do things, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, and hopefully we can have a good review to get you on. And then secondly, I think the question was, what does it look like in terms of, the splits and the incentives for auditors on the GuardianAudits team? So, of course, we have a somewhat bespoke model where we charge, pay per vulnerability. So the way it actually works is there's a base down payment amount for an audit. So that's, of course, if there were to be a review where there's no vulnerabilities at all uncovered, which hasn't happened to us in the near future or in the recent past, then of course we would have an issue, right? Because we would get literally nothing. So we need to have a down payment. We have a down payment and then PPV fees that go on top of that. And basically what we use the down payment for is to pay our auditors like a weekly base amount. And we're still figuring out, exactly what the ideal split between base amount and PPV for our auditors is. What we're going to start doing is offering you can choose how much you want to index on PPV rewards or how much you want to index on the base amount. And so people can have their own custom splits of I actually want to get 70% of my pay in PPV rewards and then 30% in base. Someone else might want to take most of their pay in base. So that's kind of how we do things.
Great. Does anyone has more questions here? Pangolin, Kodline, Glitch, Yankee?
Yep, I do. I'm just going to add it with nice to meet you, or you're going to speak to you on this interview platform. So I have some questions. I didn't ask them in the chat, but I'm just going to read them to you. It's related to, but not related to GuardianAudits specifically. It's more to do with kind of the Web3 environment, I guess. So my first question is, what are your thoughts on the uprising platform? So specifically for me, it's Cantina, but obviously anything else that can obviously could hook in recently. And there's other ones that I hadn't heard of before that were as finances to build up for competitions, right? But more so Cantina. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that? If you have any thoughts on it, obviously, as a platform and what it's doing, and then my next questions will follow on from that.
Yeah, 100%. So Cantina, first of all, I'll just say I love Cantina. I love what they're doing. I think fundamentally, Web3 security is a product that is extremely hard to scale. And I think you can see that if you look at Mis4nthr0pic. But what Cantina is doing is they're not trying to be a single entity that scales Web3 security reviews to the moon. They're trying to aggregate these individual guilds that, that's how they like to call them, or also, solo auditors as well. And so individual small organizations that provide really, really high quality reviews, they're basically connecting them with their network and sort of channeling all of the demand for high quality security reviews through that. And in that vehicle is highly scalable. So I think that that's addressing really a massive problem that we have in Web3 security right now. And I think it's a great thing. And in fact, we are going to be potentially in October doing a review through Cantina. So yeah, really love everything that Cantina is doing.
Awesome. Thank you for that, because it kind of gives me a bit of something else to think about, because the way I've seen it and the reason for my questions is I felt as though it was monopolizing, and that was going to be my next question, just to see whether you think there is a potential for it to monopolize in the Web3 space. But if someone like GuardianAudits, which I didn't think was a thing, I thought it was individual solo auditors and Web3 researchers. But if Guardian are going to go through there as well, then it makes sense that it's not monopolizing as such. It's just another stream through. Okay, so just off the back of that then, so do you think that it will cause, I mean, it's still related, but do you think it will cause a funnel of audits to be done by the profile top auditors on that platform versus the rest of the pool? So do you think that, for example, what I've seen so far, C Michael's profile and a couple of others, and to me, what I see it is going, all of the projects go through Cantina for the audits, which is obviously not a bad thing because you get quality audits from, top auditors and firms such as yourself, GuardianAudits, etc. But do you think that will cause a funnel, and also do you think it will cause a ceiling for everyone else that's trying to come through? So, for example, myself and other people that are probably not part of a firm or not really hitting high on the leaderboard in different places, do you think that it will cause a ceiling to where they will then not have as many opportunities to get private audits or to get onto, I guess they're all private audits, aren't they? So to get private audits, because everyone will be focused on going to Cantina and getting the top one. Sorry, there's a lot to say there, but
no, that's a great question. I think it will cause a redistribution. So what Cantina is really doing is they're taking, let's think of the scenario in which Cantina eats up the entire market share, which of course is not going to happen. But let's just assume that all Web3, I mean, it might happen, but let's assume all 3 Web3 security reviews go through Cantina. So what we do is we basically suck up all of the deal flow that is happening right now from, networks that people have, brands that people have, Twitter followings that people have, and we just redistribute that throughout the Cantina network. And instead of going to the people who have the brands built up or the networks built up and, the inflow from those means, it will get redistributed to, I suppose, however Cantina wants to match people, but I'm assuming that Cantina will match people based on the quality of their reviews. So we'll redistribute from, mainly brands and networks getting deal flow to just simply the people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have gotten that deal flow, but are still really kick-ass at auditing. Now those people are going to have, a greater amount of volume coming to them. So I guess the takeaway is, if you really are a fantastic Web3 security researcher and you've got the stuff that people really want, they just don't know that they want specifically what you have because maybe you don't have the network, you don't have the brand, Cantina is going to bring that to you.
Basic.
Sorry, to follow slightly on now. So I think that that's a good answer. I do. It does give me something else to think about, because I feel, from my opinion, from my objective, I see it as, well, my kids like that. So I feel like it's not a bad thing, because I think it's a good thing that Cantina is there and all the other firms as well, because obviously we wanted to protect the Web3 space. We wanted to secure, these projects and these smart contracts. And having the top people or the top firms or the top groups or guilds, you look at that, audit it, and report on it, and and get it cleaned up is definitely the best way. You don't want to have a lot of spam and a lot of low quality audits and reports. However, in my eyes, I just see anyone coming up, I feel as though there's going to be a feeling of not being able to get any work almost, because it's all going to be up there. So I'm just wondering, how are we, someone like me, working in this space for only probably a year or so properly, or trying to, then how am I going to make it to that space where I'm getting chosen, or I'm part of that top tier Cantina profile where they go, yeah, you get matched? Because I can only see it as I'll be at the bottom, I'm scraping, and top firms will just be, monopolizing on all of the work. Or does it not work that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely agree with you. There is an increasing moat that gets created as, more time passes, people get more expertise. And so therefore there are more really top level people, and the top level people get better at what they do. So there is 100% an increasing moat over time. I will say two things though. So first of all, the nature of the product is inherently not scalable. If I try to do 10 security reviews next week, they are all going to suck. And my reputation.
Great point.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a very small, funnel that's like the bottleneck, how much the top players can do. Granted, there will be more top players over time, but at this point in time, there are as few top players as there will ever be for the rest of time. So now you're like, you being here right now, you have a distinct advantage over anybody else coming in after today. Right. So that's the first thing I'll say. And the second thing I'll say is this industry is going to, like, the DeFi security, all of this, there are literally no applications thus far that have mass adoption. Now, I think the next narrative is going to be the application layer. People coming in and building thousands of applications. Now, if you agree with that, you just agree that there's going to be more applications, then you have to agree that Web3 security is going to see an intense demand. So I think that even if, there are a ton of new top players that come in, I think there's going to be significantly more demand that comes up from new people trying to launch in the space, trying to build new applications on top of these new L1s, L2s, and so forth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, 100%. Because I guess I feel probably that I live in this bubble and Twitter and C4 and all of that, and
also
see that
bad market.
So then
You need
they
to
see that and probably we're running out. Yeah, I feel like we're running out of work or opportunities, but you're more. Yeah, you're right. It's still in its infancy. And I tell my friends that the same thing. Yeah, we're in its infancy getting now. So I agree with that.
Awesome.
Thanks for that. That's my
No.
Question, man. Yeah.
Max, you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious. Curious about client acquisition. So clearly, the YouTube channel helps, and being active on Twitter. But are you guys reaching out to people constantly, like a salesperson, or are people coming to you, or some sort of mixture?
Yeah. So I'll be 100% honest. The YouTube channel thus far, I don't think it helps immediately in the way that you think it would. So you would think that we would get a ton of people that are, they come through as leads just directly from the YouTube channel. I think it's more of a secondary benefit where it just helps to be seen as someone who knows what they're talking about. And that's incredibly effective when somebody comes into your periphery and they can see, okay, these guys are legit. I can see that they know what they're talking about. And then they, in terms of like closing, deals and stuff like that. In terms of actually getting new leads and getting new projects, the single most important thing that I've seen thus far has been referrals from previous people that you've worked with. So in terms of getting new clients after you've gotten, let's say you get your first person, right? And we can talk about how to get your first person in a minute. But once you've gotten your first person, if you go all out and do what no other firm can or would do, spend, an egregious amount of time, build up an insane amount of written tests, fuzzing tests, maybe even record videos for each finding, which is something that sometimes we do end up doing, then you're gonna get crazy referrals, right? That client is gonna stick with you for everything that they continue to write, and then also they're gonna give you 3 more people, and then you do the same thing for those 3 people, and then they're gonna stick with you, and they're gonna give you 9 more people, and so you're gonna get very quickly overwhelmed, and you're gonna start figuring out, holy crap, how do I keep doing this thing but do it more? And that's where kind of the issue of our opportunity vehicle comes in. But that's what I could say on, client inflow.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Do we have more questions here for people with the mic open glitch, Bianchi? No? Okay. I'll move for questions in the community. So the first question I have here is, as someone who has experience in Web 2 and Web 3, what do you think is limiting wider adoption into Web 3, especially when it comes into companies, organizations, and financial institutions?
Yeah, no, this is the question, right? So I think personally, I feel like the number one limitation that we have relative to Web 2 is the speed of iteration. How fast can I get a product to market? And also, how cheap can I get a product to market? So if I want to have Web 2 level iteration, then I should be able to launch an app in a few hours and have it go live and have people start using it right away. You cannot do that with a DeFi protocol. In fact, if you do that, you're probably going to get a ChatGPT audit and you're probably going to get wrecked. So the first issue and it's funny, I think fundamentally everything is coming back to security here. The first issue that we have to solve is security, right? We have to figure out how can we, and maybe there are other pathways to solve this, but how can we overcome the issue of when I launch an application, I've got to be 100%, 110% sure that there's no critical vulnerabilities in it. Otherwise, the entire brand, the entire company goes down the drain. And like, when I think about it from a VC perspective, I don't know why the people put the money into this space. I wouldn't invest in any project that's like, hey, we're going to write 4,000 lines of code and we're probably going to mess up and we're going to deploy it. And you might lose all your money if we write a bug, right? So I think that is the number one, bottleneck on the industry as a whole. And the solution to that could look like a combination of improved monitoring tools. Maybe there's some like just-in-time MEV like solution to like, oh, we see a hack, we go and front run it somehow, something like that gets built. I think that would be a really great shortcut to solving this problem. And then of course scaling the security review infrastructure and things like this. And I think AI does play a role in that somehow. I don't think it's going to by any means replace what we do, but I think it's going to make it a lot more effective, a lot more efficient, and get us closer to that iteration time that Web 2 currently enjoys.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Another question that I have for you here is about that fixed time. So how do you decide how much time to spend on an asset? Like if you set a timer, how do you decide where you spend the time? I guess how you do your time strategy.
Yeah, 100%. So timing is hard, and I think that's probably an area where I have more to improve on and setting like distinct, this is exactly how long I should spend on this based on this is how many lines of code. At the moment, it's more like a feeling that you get, like there's even after the fourth, fifth pass, you're like, okay, this is getting really hard to go over because I'm just like finding it really hard to think of anything new. Generally, after we're deep into that territory for a while, that's when I'll usually call it. And one more interesting thing on that is when I feel like I'm just, I've completely understood this area and I have trouble coming up with any new edge cases or things like that, that's exactly when it's helpful to step away from the code base and think more about the code base abstractly, or also try auditing, doing like pair auditing, which is something we've been experimenting with recently, is jumping in VC, somebody shares their screen and they walk through line by line, and then the other person is there to just simply think about edge cases, think about interesting questions and where they can lead the auditing flow. And that has helped us get a new perspective on code that we're really familiar with. But it's kind of subjective at the moment. And so, maybe I can make that more, maybe that's an area I can improve on.
Awesome, bro. And two more questions. The next question is a classic one. How do you approach a complex code base?
Yeah, 100%. Complex code bases. I love and hate complex code bases. I love them because there's a lot of vulnerabilities, and I hate them because they take a long time to understand and really get the gist of. So first of all, I would say just break it down into small pieces. So just understand fundamentally, what are we trying to achieve with this code? And then now we just need to know, okay, how does that get achieved? So what that looks like is I'll translate those into goals, right, for one of my sessions. So I'll say, okay, this is an options protocol, we'll say. So how do I open an options contract? How do I open a call contract? How do I open a put contract? How do I close one of those? What does the P&L calculation look like? Those will be goals that I write out and just break it down into chunks. And then from there, you have to understand that, hey, I'm not going to understand areas of this right out of the gate, but that's fine. I'm just going to shield my eyes and try to understand this one thing, and we'll get to that thing later.
Do you draw diagrams like from state machines and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic point. Whiteboards are essential, not only for like sharing. So whenever we hop in like VC and we want to go over an idea, we use Miro to whiteboard out everything. We've got whiteboards just chock full of stuff, like weird graphs and stuff. But I also have a little whiteboard that I keep at my desk that I can use to just, I often just write, like simple algebra and stuff on that. That's useful. And then I have the big whiteboard on the wall across from me, and that one's better when we've really got to step back and think about things. So yes, 100% whiteboards and diagrams are so useful.
Awesome, brother. Last question is, what do you think of the imbalance when it comes to applying the experience on Web3 versus Web2? For instance, Web2 bug bounty experience is viewed nicely in Web3, but the Web3 bug bounty experience Web2 is almost irrelevant at this current point in time, especially when you relate it to real cybersecurity jobs. So basically, Web2 people don't care about Web3. Do you think that this will change with time, or the scales will be forever imbalanced to the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Web3 bug bounty landscape is very early on. I mean, everything's really early on. So we don't know what this will look like in 3 to 5 years. I mean, even 3 to 5 years is, let's be honest, it's a short time scale for the technology that's being built here. Like, we're talking about taking over the global financial infrastructure. That's not something that happens in 3 to 5 years.
Right.
That's something that happens in 50 years, 100 years. So I think we'll see this evolve very slowly over, the next, decades even. So it might look like, right now it's really, there's a lot of issues with it, but I think things are definitely changing slowly, and, it might not be noticeable on the day to day, but I think if we zoom forward 2 years, we'll have things in place and we'll have implemented solutions for, current issues.
Awesome, brother. Do you have any closing thoughts? You want to talk a little bit about GuardianAudits, Solidity Labs, and invite people, to get to know, maybe because this will be on YouTube, maybe people, get to know your channel and everything.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. First of all, thank you so much for having me back on here. I always love coming in and talking to you guys. I think it's amazing what you guys are doing in Open Sense, and I know you guys are going to keep going, keep building, and keep bringing people into the space. I think that's the most important thing we can do right now is bring more Web3 security researchers in, because that's, like we discussed, seems to be the bottleneck of everything. Everything comes back to the security layer. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And
thank you, man.
Yeah, feel free to go give me a follow on Twitter, OX Owen Thurm, or watch some of my videos on YouTube, OX Owen Thurm.
Awesome. And get to know GuardianAudits too. I'm going to drop the link here in the video. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Owen, and see you guys later.